last week. Just going to be polishing up some of the equipment, getting more details on there, maybe some forearm guards, wrist guards, that kind of thing. Finish up these belts. Maybe get to the teeth and the face. What's up, Oscar? Welcome. Spain, huh? Wow. Whereabouts in Spain? I always wanted to go. Never been. Hey, what's up, Ash? Fourth. Got in here, coming in hot today. Gonna get this dude some normal teeth. His teeth are a little too procedural, since I did them procedurally. Oh, cripes. What's up, Mord? What's up, guys? He's gonna have to open his mouth a little bit, so. What's up, Ward? Welcome, man. Thanks for hanging out, guys. For those of you who don't know, Ashley A Cubed right there is another one of the streamers on this channel. She streams on Wednesdays. Does really cool creature work. You at work right now, Ash? What kind of dog do I have? Yeah, you can hear that? I have a Basset Hound. I'll take a quick pick of him right here somewhere. is one of his more photogenic moments. But yeah, he's a goofball. That's Stubbs. What's up, Hopper? Do you need to retopologize? Jacob on Facebook asked, do you need to retopologize your models before you export them to, say, Unity or any game engine, really? Yeah, you know, there are tools you can automate retopology, and there's some environment artists who can do, like, you know, they'll do auto decimation, and if it's not rigged, for example, if they're doing like a mechanical piece, they can just do auto decimation and export that. Typically, I you know, hand retopologize everything. And then for characters, if they're going to be animated, of course, then you definitely need to do a little bit of retop. Split the bottom and top teeth here. I think the main thing I'm going to do with the face is just give it some gums, so that when they like open their mouth real wide, then, you know, it actually looks like teeth. Yeah, Bassets are the greatest. They're he's more furniture than dog. He just like pretty unbelievable little animal. They're very easygoing, but also just like real comical animals. Total goofball. I just duplicated the teeth off there and made a sphere. I'm just going to turn this into the gums. Move the pivot, scale it back, scale it wide. Let's turn everything off but size the teeth in this. Just need some solid gums for the roof of the mouth here. Okay, once I make these teeth, they're gonna have to, you know, react accordingly, look accordingly. Only kind of sort of, yeah. I wanted to do like, so this is, you know, obviously early stages here. But my goal is basically to take this thing all the way from, you know, ball of clay to in-game rigged animating. So I'm going to do the full pipeline, get it rigged up, skinned, and then maybe even do some little animations with the guy. I always like Donatello because the bow staff's a really fun weapon to animate, and it looks, you know, that big old stick flying around always looks really cool. So I want to do a really jacked up turtle, and then I'll probably use this model and spin off the other turtles from it. So that's the plan. Let's get back to this guy. There. I always rename things, and whenever I rename them, I end up like blowing the names out. Yeah. So when I walk my dog Stubbs, it's basically like very much at his own pace, and he's he's miserable. Like he just like wants to check out every square inch of the neighborhood before he like is ready to move on. So it's like we're not covering a lot of ground. It can get very dull. And it's funny because like he's having the time of his life, but it's just ugh. Man, is it boring. Alright, I'm gonna make these teeth an actual teeth shape. David Arenas, greetings from Spain, X2. We got 2 people joining from Spain. That's awesome. Welcome, guys. What about house? Okay, so Jacob asked again. He's asking about retopology. What about house, small architecture stuff, those static stuff you don't animate? Do you need to retope those too? Yes, like I was saying, some environment artists will do just decimation. Like, let me do a quick demo here. Make polymesh. So say this is like right, like a flagpole maybe. And then duplicate that. Turn that into a cube. Shrink that cube down. So we're not going to animate this, right? But you have this little flag. And say it's like, you know, way too high resolution. Say you like, oops, subdivided this thing all up. Groups by normals, crease polygroup, yes. Delete lower. Right, so it's really high resolution. And like say I put in a bunch of just like, you know, wanted to make it nice and wavy. Excuse me, this is a pretty whack demo, of course, but this is for the purposes of illustration, not for actually demonstrating anything other than just like your options. So you have this like little wavy thing. And it's really high resolution because you wanted to like sculpt it just as you saw fit, and you really wanted to get that like, you know, exact look. So now you have this, and you don't want to really spend your time retopologizing the whole damn thing. And even though like it's a square, so rectangle, so it could retopologize really easily. With a more complex piece, like I've seen characters do this, or I've seen artists do this with environment pieces that are like gargoyles or statues or things that are like a lot of intricate shapes, but they're not going to be animated. They're just kind of sitting there. So you go to like plugin, decimation master. Let's take it down to, you know, maybe it's a flag, so let's say like 1,000 polygons, right? Probably. Pre-process current. It's gonna run a little algorithm there, and then decimate current. That didn't work. This thing is not a right value. I only have 300 active points, but it thinks that decimation's behaving strangely. There's a lot of applications that do this specific thing, decimation that is. But see, there you go. So now this is like totally triangulated, right? And that's really low resolution. It's only 259 active points, you know, 259, 514 polys, right? So like that's a good retope process for environment stuff, because you know, presumably a flag would be, you know, deforming. But like if you're gonna have something high resolution that you've sculpted up that's not gonna be deforming, you can just decimate it out, and then, you know, the trick's gonna be UVing this, because, you know, authoring UVs with a bunch of triangles is never easy. I think there's a way to maintain UVs. Yeah, keep UVs. But you could also keep UVs, and then it would take the border edges and it would figure out your UV islands, and it would decimate in between the UVs. So you would be able to, like, if you had UVs already on the square thing, that would work as well. So there you go. That's probably that's about as quick a demo as I can give you on how to do game ready topology without actually retopologizing by hand. Alright, back to Turtle Town. Okay. Changing color when I animation. Inflate that a little bit. Hey Benjo, man, welcome. What's up? Yeah, Mars Sunshine Jams. We're in Shadow Colossus now. I love this. There's a video game playlist that I can't get enough of, so I just use it. Alright, the main thing I want to do here is grab some of these like incisors and pull those down, but I want to see the face as well. Probably throw it like right here. Too crazy. I just want to make it look like he's actually got normal teeth. Turtle. What is that, the incisor? What's that tooth that comes down on everybody? It goes down a little bit farther. And like right before you start getting to the molars. A9, that's the one. Which Ninja Turtles are going to be? This is Donatello, but I'll probably use this model to get, yeah, I'll probably like spin off the rest of them from it. I'll make this, I'll combine these teeth into one. I don't want to go overboard on this because, like, if you remember the movies and some of the cartoons, like, they do tend to have kind of like uniform teeth. I don't know if that has to do with like how turtles are in real life. Do turtles have pretty? What do actual turtles' teeth look like? I wonder. I guess I could probably find that out pretty quick, but just want to bang this out first. I typed in turtle teeth and it's a nightmare zone. Taka, welcome. What's up, Taka Backers? Welcome back. Can you make a tutorial on how to retopology? Okay, hopefully that helped. Can you recommend any tutorial or book on how to make correct retopology with ZBrush? I think there's probably a few out there. I would just check out Decimation Master Retopologize. Here's a good one. Oh, it looks like they actually do the retop. Yeah, that's actually not what I'm looking for. Yeah, Jacob, I would just I would get familiar with Decimation Master, and you can see there's a plenty Decimation Master tutorials out there. And if that gets you there, then it's pretty straightforward from there, because the retop, I mean, you get your low resolution geometry at that point, so you're all set. Second thought, I'm going to split these teeth back up and make two. One back here, I'll make into one big boy. Speaking of nightmare zone, these teeth are going to be pretty ugly. But they just need a little bit of resolution, a little bit of texture, because you know, as long as they're not perfect boxes. Let's see what this guy looks like. It's a little much. So you smooth him out a little bit. He's probably going to be a little too just a little too intense. Trim him back a little bit. Oh, a little personality, but I don't want it to be a horror show. Two buck teeth as well. Looks pretty good. That's about 90% of what sculpting is, and ZBrush is just like go overboard, knock it back, overboard, knock it back, overboard, knock it back. And one thing I do like about a lot of the imagery I've seen is like they all seem to kind of pull in a little bit. See that adding the little bit of pull to the back of the jaw helps, because a lot of that, like the stylized imagery here is like kind of like they have it kind of like their teeth are kind of like pulling in like that. I think it's a good look for it. Where can I find this? Struggling here to line up my chat window. Here we go. Facebook set up with Restream again, because Facebook's web app is killing me. Alright, sorry. Taka says, I may have a little help here. I just made a baby bed with ZModeler, and I made everything from simple Q, which means my model's in one single part. Now I want to divide it and add extra details on it, but the problem is even on 50 million poly, I have not enough resolution for my details. Yeah, well, I think the main thing you want to consider is that, well, for one, is this for just the mesh itself, Taka, or is it for a game engine, or is it just, like, what's it for? I guess is what I'm asking. And then two, yeah, like Mord says, you wanna split it up in different subtools and then subdivide those, because if it's one big piece, then you're in trouble. So like if you have, if it's like a baby bed, like a crib, you could probably split off, you know, the individual pillars of the thing could be, you know, one subtool. The bottom of it could be a subtool. The sides and the headboard can be a subtool. If you split up individual subtools, you can get it to at least where it's a manageable place. This guy out of here. Guess I can make the gums also. Come down here. Oh, whoops! I forget to make the gums usually like reach down and then become the roof of the mouth. So like, if I move this up here. Be dynameshed. Dynamesh with projection so that I keep that color. I wish Clay didn't by default have color to it. It's really obnoxious. Clay brush, that is. I know what I want to do. Instead of doing that, let's do this. I'll go lower than I need to, and then back it off with my brush. For the games. Okay, so if you're doing it in games, then you're going to need to okay, so here's how I would say. If you're doing it, you should consider maybe doing your, like, 50 million polys is a lot, and for no matter what your details are, that just seems like too much resolution for something the size of a baby bed. It's something that you're going to be limited by the game engine if you're making it for a game model. So that means that you're gonna be limited by the texture resolution, because all that detail you're sculpting into the wood, into the headboard, all you're doing, that's gonna go into, at some point, a texture, and then that's got to be what renders in the game engine. So you're not going to be limited by the polygons in your machine while you're sculpting it. The display of your model is going to be limited by how much texture detail you could fit onto that. And so like you're going to bake that detail, the high resolution detail is going to get baked onto the model. So that's the real place to look, because that's going to dictate, you know, more about the presentation. And of course you could always go like 4 8K textures and you can capture all that detail. But I think, you know, the detail you're trying to get, whether it's like, you know, wood grain or, you know, paneling or whatever you're trying to do, at like 50 million polygons is not enough for some reason, you're probably going to want to apply that detail at the texture stage, meaning coloring the mesh with wood grain and good gold material and all those kind of things. So that's something to think about. Dante, what's up? Welcome back, man. Yeah, like Mord says, like for normal maps, like you would make normals for the things. How'd you bend those teeth? If you rewind the stream on Twitch a little bit, you can see. But basically, like, you know, I sculpted a little bit, painted a little bit, and then at some point I just masked it off and bent it in with the gizmo. Not quite there yet, but I'm just trying to work quickly and see if I can get some gums and stuff, because he is going to be able to open his mouth, and, you know, you want that, like, you know, turtle looking big horseshoe mouth showing. So I bring this down too much, I can then knock it back. What the hell? Even more resolution, putts. There we go. Strong. Supposed to knock back the creases. Supposed to knock back these parts. I'm just going to adjust these other teeth so they fit sort of in between. Activate symmetry. Do you know programming language? Yeah, I actually spent most of my career as an engineer before I started High-Res Entertainment. I was an engineer for Activision, so I can help you there if you have any questions. These are not super anatomically correct, but it is a fictional animal. So you know, we can live a little bit with it. Not feel too cheated. Alright, so these though would narrow up here. And like I said, not super anatomically correct, but I don't believe we're going to care, because all we need to do which one of these? He's going to go down here. A little too aggressively choppy. I probably need to correct that a little bit. Looks a little bit too much like that. What's that other turtle called? Shredder? Or not Shredder. Shredder's the bad guy, but like there's a turtle that has like all crazy. He's like more like a monster looking turtle. His name. Overshoot it, then back it off. Overshoot it, then back it off. That looks a little bit more appealing. This is the real tricky part because you gotta make the mouth bags, and this is always super hard. This usually I do outside of ZBrush just because it's really tricky to get this geo in here to behave itself. Cutting a hole in a mesh and making it hollow like that is really difficult, obnoxious. Especially too because I don't really have a ton of geometry here. Oh, thanks, Carlos. Appreciate that. meshes. Looks a little more fearsome now, though, doesn't he? Hey, Nuzzletops, what's up? Welcome. Can you help me with C++? I'm willing to tilt a platform. Wanting to tilt a platform in Unreal with a button click, only at 45 degrees. You know, I don't know if you wanna. I mean, like, that's a pretty simple problem, just applying a rotation to a mesh. So I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to belittle what you're doing. What I'm trying to say is that that's the kind of thing that probably would be really useful to do in Blueprint, which is if you're doing it in UE4. Blueprints are really, there's a lot of examples out there of just like transforming a mesh in Blueprint. So I mean, that might be where you want to start, because that's a pretty simple problem to solve, and I don't know, like, it seems like digging into C++ might be overkill, you know, might not be the best use of your time. Duplicate these gums. Flip them over. Oops. These won't fit exactly, but I'll adjust them until they do. Hide everything except for the teeth. Let's do the same thing. I'll just question is, did the cheeks go back or did the teeth come forward? The cheeks do feel a little wide, don't they? But I don't want to bring them back too much. One thing about having a full mouth bag is that it keeps you honest. You know, like you kind of have to be you have to respect the shape that's in there, which is a good thing because it's really easy to kind of get lost. Just where his little turtle ears would be. If turtles had ears, at least earlobes, which they don't. But on a human, that's where the neck muscles connect behind the jaw. Stronger chin here. There we go. Nose feels a little small. I think they have like kind of a wider nose. There you go. I think the face is a little bit better there. Teeth and the gums goes a long way. Give him a little smile. When it comes time to rig these things, like you want the mouth just to be in a neutral pose because ultimately like this has to get rigged, and so you don't want to like put too much personality in expression because it's going to need to you know, you're going to need to you know, rig it so the mouth can go closed, open, you know, kind of wherever. Oh, whoops, looks like I've got a geometry issue down here. Put these faces too close together and it became a shell. So what I do here, just to kind of repair that, I just give some inflate brush, which will push it out in both areas. mesh. I can trim it back. I can take and I got backface masking on my clay buildup brush, so I'll just pull these back so at least what I'm doing basically just pulling these faces away from these faces because I need this to be able to sculpt and dynamesh without affecting those faces back there underneath and collapsing on me. There we go. Octavio, what's up? While rigging face, how would you change the facial expression details? Yeah, so Dante, the key is going to be, like I said, making a neutral pose. So like, even though it's got a bit of a smile here, that's not too big of a problem because I can just, you know, before I export to the final, you know, before I do the final geometry, I'll give them like a more just kind of, you know, as neutral as expression as I can do. And the way actually I tend to do it with models that are going into a game engine, I'll make it so that they have like their mouths are just like a little bit open, like you know, it's like a little tiny bit, and then that's enough to rig the whole thing up in that way. And then for like the skinning pose, just close the mouth, close the lips, and you know, so for the skinning and the bind pose, it's open, and you could assign all the skin weights as you need. But then for actual, like, you know, the mesh goes into the engine, I'll close that mouth a little bit with the bone and keep all my skin weights that I've already sculpted in, and then that neutral expression will be easy because like as long as it's like a completely closed expression, I can then grab the lips, grab the jaw, move the cheekbones, etc., etc. So like, you know, that won't be something I get to on the stream, obviously, because this is, you know, a ZBrush stream, but hopefully it's something that I want to get to, and then I can show you guys the result. At the very least, I'll show you guys the result when I'm done. Too far with his nose, but there we go. I think that nose and cheeks are kind of in the right place that I want, but I do think it's a little bit. There's something a bit off about it. I think maybe I actually undo all this. I just want to try a different look real quick. There's something to that. I think there's something about that little shorter face that I like. Is back face masking not on? Dan V's, what's up? Thanks. What resolution are you working with Dynamesh? Are you sculpting in dynamic perspective? I can't tell from custom UI. Yeah, perspectives I keep right over here. I tend to switch back and forth. I like looking at the thing head on without perspective, so I can just see proportion a lot. But yeah, when I'm checking out, like when I'm zooming the thing around and checking it out, yeah, it really helps to have perspective on. So I kind of work in both. And then resolution-wise, there's about 300,000 points on this torso, which honestly is probably a little bit too much resolution for the stage I'm at. This is a point where, why can't I just click these things? At this stage, it's probably safer to back it off a little bit, but. I just want to overkill and then back it off. Yeah, I think it's better. I had a much bigger jaw and chin last time, but I think it's more, I don't know what the word is, turtley? A little bit more turtley to have it kind of just be mostly lower lip and have it just kind of, the chin sort of recede into the neck. So that was like a little experiment. I kept my undo history ready in case I had to like back it out because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. But now that I see it, I do think it's better. I think it's more turtley. And like I said, having that mouth bag is going to be key, because when I animate it, he can, you know, open his mouth, scream, do all that kind of stuff, have a tongue. Just having a facial, I mean, our current game, Disc Jam, doesn't have any facial expression because our characters are so far away from the camera. But you know, whenever we do our zoom ins, it's evident that there's no facial expressions, and they seem just, it's such a, you know, kind of unnatural thing to have absolutely no facial animation. The problem is that facial and hand animation is so damn time consuming. It becomes a real impediment, because it's, you know, it's the kind of thing that always needs to look right. If it doesn't look good, it looks really bad. Face and hands, and they're just really time consuming things to do well. And that's what game development really is. Game development is so much more about time management than it is anything, because it's so easy to get lost in the sort of in the want list versus the need list. Managing the want list versus the need list is the most important thing about game development, in my opinion. Too gooey here in the neck. I want these shapes, but I want them to be defined. There we go. That part comes in. What is happening? The thing about going super exaggerated like this is that you're kind of always fighting function and form. You want something that looks cool in a still image, the way comic books do and stuff, but then it's got to be able to animate and move, so it has to be significantly different. These kind of veins and stuff should not be symmetrical, so I'm painting them in symmetrical, but I'm going to need to replace them with some asymmetrical versions. Thanks, Zombie Warrior, appreciate that. Oh, you guys are being very kind today. Thanks, Kenny. I also dropped these tassels down, even though when it comes to rigging, I can't have them there. I just put them there kind of for visualization purposes, but they need to be rigged straight out so that they can fly and animate as well. Do some of this equipment, start throwing down some real knee pads and stuff here. I think I got the face pretty much where I wanted it. Got the mouth bag in there. Got the neutral expression okay. His cheeks are pretty much okay. His eyebrows are a little weird. No, there's a couple of problems with these eyebrows actually. Alright, so let's look at those. If I look at him straight on, I don't know if I want to be able to see that little of his eyes. Like, I wonder if I want his eyes to be a little more visible. I'm just looking at some reference here. I made a little turtle reference board. There's a lot of different styles here, obviously. And I think the one I'm doing is a little bit unique from all of these. The degree to which that nose is prominent kind of changes from style to style. This guy just does a straight oval head. Big wide eyes. Another really oval head. I tend to like the more exaggerated ones, kind of like this maybe. But my eyes are a lot bigger, obviously. I do like the direction mine's taking because mainly I've been looking at turtle reference for a while, and I think this is like a bit of a unique look. So my main thing now I'm trying to decide is, I like the nice big eyes, but if you look straight on at it, you can barely see the eyes, like the nose and the cheeks are already obscuring it. So I think the thing to do is to probably just take it all and move it up just a scotch. So I think if I grab this, find everything else except for the eyes. Grab everything, just move them together. Just if I can guesstimate, I guess. Looks like I went a little bit too far there. Like right there. Yeah, and then I'll adjust everything else. Yeah, basically it's going to give me a little bit more real estate so that like the nose is a good size relative to the mouth. But now I can kind of pick the rest of this stuff up and just give it a little, I mean it's a tiny adjustment, but I think it's going to make a lot of difference because I want there to be a decent amount of visibility. Now I can shave the nose down a little bit. from head on. The eyes sit nicely in the head. The profile looks good because they have the nice kind of like sort of telescoped. Not telescope. What's the word I'm looking for there? Sort of projected skull that kind of tapers down. Eyeballs. That's part of the problem, is that I wasn't in the center of the eyes. So I'm new to sculpting and ZBrush. I'm currently studying animation and game design. Any advice on how to improve except grinding? Let's see. Well, there's always, you know, like everyone's gonna say practice. That's like the best advice, and you know, it's true. But advice besides grinding, I guess it's just is to finish work, because the thing that I stress the most to people who want to get into game development is that the last 90% the last 10% takes as long as the first 90%. So while it can be tempting to walk away from a project that's not really working out, you know, your skill as a game developer is going to be defined in those moments when things aren't working out. And it's really important that you get an understanding of like how to problem solve and how to get to the solution without you know, potentially having a how-to in your lap. That could be true for programming, it's true for animation, it's kind of just true for all of it. There's going to be things in the workflow where the game design calls for A, B, or C, and you know, there's no YouTube tutorial for it, there's no how-to guide on a blog out there for it. So you know, creative problem solving and understanding fundamentals is part of it, and some of that comes with mileage and grinding, but a lot of that comes with just you know, you need to be really hungry about research, you need to be really hungry about digesting people's workflows and reading GDC talks and finding out like, oh, they do this way, and that sounds cool because look at the result they got, but that may or may not work for you, and why. That kind of thinking is going to be what really elevates your abilities as a game developer. Just being real critical and digesting, like I said, as much workflow and digesting as much procedural, you know, just process stuff. Just digesting as much of that as you can, because depending on what you want to get into, if you want to get in as a designer, I don't know what really you want to do other than just make games. You know, it's really hard to interview and hire for that position because you know people being good designers, what is the interview about? Oh, I have good ideas. No, it's got to be about like system designs and balance and you know, what do you do if this thing's OP and the game's like that, all that kind of stuff. The most important thing about game development, I'd say, is probably communication. You know, on the ground floor, game development is almost entirely about communication because there's so many moving parts and people all have their responsibilities, right? tweaking these eyes and I keep making it worse. For one, they're definitely too far apart. These for a minute and see these things. I'm new to ZBrush. This is both motivating and ego crushing. You're really good. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate that, man. And yeah, you know, I've got a long way to go, and you know, I think a big part of it is just you know, never being kind of pleased with where you are. I remember when I finally got to the point where I was like, oh, I would feel okay showing this to somebody and not be embarrassed. Like, that was a big jump for me. I was like, oh, that's the first time I felt I could actually show somebody the work and not be mortified by what they were seeing. So like, being self-critical is important, but you don't want to be self-defeating. Like, so I've always kind of had the mentality where it's like, you know, I was really hard on myself, but at the same time, like, you know, there's times when it's like, every now and then it's like, oh wow, I kind of dig that. That looks okay to me. I can share. So that you want to just kind of like get to that point where it's like you're never, you know, you're never stopping the evaluation of yourself, but don't let it get negative, because the reality is every artist you admire went through those same growing pains. Every artist you've ever seen make something cool has thrown his pen down in despair. I mean, like, it's just, you know, the journey of creating artwork is a painful one, and you hate so much of the things you do. And just halfway through that little resculpt I did there, I'm happy where it finally is now, because it's like I corrected the problem I wanted to correct, I got the face where I wanted to get it, but throughout that entire time I was doing that, I was like, ugh, this looks worse, this looks worse, this is worse, what have I done, what have I done, what have I done? I just made it worse. And now, you know, it's like, it's really easy to, you know, throw down, close the application and go pour yourself a glass of wine and try to calm down. You know, so like, it's important to kind of fight through those things. I hate pretty much everything I've ever worked on that I've made, but there are times when I kind of like, oh, you know what, this turned out okay, and it's important to sort of keep your level head about things, because like I said, every artist who's ever made anything cool has made about 100 things that suck before they got to that point. It's just, you know, and I think it was actually a concept artist, not a sculptor, but a concept artist told me, it's like, he's basically said, like, you have to be content with how long it's gonna look ugly until it looks good. Meaning, like, as you're doing the sort of the block-in stages, and as you're doing this sort of you know, proportions, and proportions are probably the most important thing to like getting things polished, because no matter how good the sculpt, you can put a lot of detail into a sculpt, but if the proportions are off, it's gonna look heinous, right? Like, so like during those early stages where you're just figuring things out, it's important to remember that it's gonna look really ugly for a long time until it looks good. And that advice always kind of struck me as kind of strange advice, but then as I started working, I was like, oh my god, it's like so true. It's like, you know, like, you just have to have faith that it's gonna eventually look good. Just keep correcting things until it looks good, and then all of a sudden it looks good. And you never kind of know what that list of things is when you're on a piece, but then all of a sudden it's like, you look back and you're like, oh, it actually looks okay. These muscles are a little bit more rounded. Kind of go up like that. There we go. Probably start pinching the belt there a little bit, but I think I'd rather fix the belt than fix this. Even that little belt could probably clip into him a little bit. Did I Dynamesh for it? Of course I did. Damn, I lost all my poly paints. Would you recommend using a separate keypad for shortcuts being left-handed? Control position for the keyboard. Yeah, I've actually struggled with this a lot being right-handed. I finally settled on this thing. If you can see, here's my OBS. This thing here. It's a little Logitech K810. It's not bad. I mean, the start, alt, and control buttons are all where I want them, and it's nice and small, so I can keep it like adjacent. I think if I was lefty, I could keep it on my right as well. You know, it's a pretty useful little thing there. Although, yeah, I guess if I was lefty, I would want it to reach. Yes, I mean, you know, my main keyboard is down here at my waist, but I can't reach everything. So finding a good mini keyboard is actually quite challenging. It's really tough to kind of find one that has all the hotkeys that I need, and like a lot of them are like, you know, Microsoft, Apple hybrids, so they have kind of different shortcut rules and all that kind of thing. So it's tricky, but once you find the right one, you know, whether it's on the left side or right, I would say though, get the external keyboard. It's worth it. Like I tried the number pads. I also have one of these things. And I thought, this is going to be the future. Once I incorporate this into my workflow, I'll be unstoppable, and I can do art anywhere, on everything, and I can work so quickly, and I can be so fast. That's this little doodad here. Don't get me wrong, it's cool. Like, I love this thing. The mechanical switches are awesome. I absolutely love, you know, the thumbstick. This whole thing is really a really cool thing. But at the end of the day, like, my ZBrush shortcuts are like Alt-T, and T wouldn't fit on here. And rather than make the whole thing into its own little macro set and try to memorize a new layout for everything, you know, I got a keyboard, I can type on it, I can do everything I need over here, and I just use this thing as like as a dual keyboard in Bluetooth, and it's been the best solution, unfortunately, because I really would like to have that little portable numpad become like the thing I use, but I just haven't been able to work faster in it. I'm sure there was some amount of time I could probably, but yeah, like I said, it just hasn't been the case for me. Fill color, fill material. This one I want that color. Fill color, fill material. Did I make that? Did I do that wrong? I did. Skin shade, fill material. Teeth, skin shade, let's go. A little gray, maybe a little yellowy. Like a nice, there we go, like a nice yellowish white. There it is. Fill color. Fill material. Same thing down here. Fill material, fill color. Bring that smile back just for the just for the stream, I'll have to fix that when I'm done, but for now I like it. It's a little dude bra smile. Ooh, I don't know what language that is, Setlo. I'm sorry, I can't help you there. Miguel Takuna, appreciate that. Nice work. Thank you very much. How long have I been sculpting? You know, it's tricky to say because I've been an engineer for my whole career. Like I've not been working professionally until me and my partner started this new studio, High Horse. All the time I was at Activision, I was an engineer, so I wasn't really working professionally, and I wouldn't really be sculpting every day. But I did have a pretty, you know, healthy art habit where I would go home and I would work on stuff in my spare time. Then I would take, you know, several months where I didn't sculpt anything, and I would come back and I would have to, you know, get my feet wet again, and all of a sudden I was clumsy with the app, and I started like kind of making things that I wasn't proud of, and then I would take another really long break, so I was frustrated. So it's hard to say, only because it's been, you know, technically a long time, but it's been a long time of on and off, and I've only been really working professionally as an artist for a few years even. So it's you know, I've been working with ZBrush and sculpting since, you know, probably I think it was 2009 maybe is when I started toying around with it, and it was mostly just, you know, experimental, seeing if I could do anything cool with it, and all the stuff I made was really ugly. But it was fun because I was like, this is really cool software and I'm really interested in what it can do. And then eventually they started updating and adding really insane new features, and ZBrush became just the standard. You know, I don't know anything that even competes with it right now. And at that point I kind of at least knew how everything worked. So as new features came out, like Dynamesh and being able to do dynamic resolution, and new workflows started emerging, and YouTube people started sharing their art processes more and more. Like, it really became something that I thought that, oh wow, I can actually get pretty good at this, and I started to get results that I was kind of at least content with, that I could start putting into my games. You know, they weren't really good looking models, but I was happy with them because it was going to be able to demonstrate. Like, a lot of a lot of engineers get held up with the fact that, like, they don't have an artist to help them you know, get the look and feel that they want, right? So I mean, like, how do you do that? Well, you got to hire somebody or get somebody that's a friend to work for free, and it's really tough to find like a workflow that works for everybody if you're only kind of representing one section of the video game pipeline. So, you know, I spent my career kind of engineering, but I also spent all my free time trying to get good at art, so that I could very least put something in my games that I was building that would show. And then, as you know, enough of doing that, and I started getting good enough that I was like, oh, actually, I'm starting to get a little bit okay with what I'm showing here. And then eventually, you know, we went on to make Disc Jam, which isn't, by all means, isn't a gorgeous game, but like I said, the feeling we had was like, oh, the art is not going to be something that is going to prevent us from shipping or draw a lot of criticism, you know, and you know, the criticism we did receive over the artwork has all been very fair. You know, we don't begrudge any reviewer that feedback, because they're right. You know, we don't have a staff of professional artists to make it look gorgeous. But the simple fact that the game is made by 2 people, one of whom is only a hobby artist at best, you know, we felt pretty proud about it at the end of the day. Lips that kind of thin out, nice little smile there, good chin, the chin works into the neck muscles pretty well. Okay, pretty happy with what we got with the face. Eyebrows fit the eyes, skull is in kind of a decent place. If anything, maybe I would do a little bit more bulbous here, just because that's where all those kind of muscles scrunch up together. And his facial expression here is probably going to need to change as well for when it comes time to rig, because this is a little bit too expressive, and I want it to be a little bit more neutral. But you know, that being said, I'm not too upset with it because it's a pretty decent base expression. Like, you know, he can probably do a lot of expressions out of there. Shane Olson mentioned something about that, citing Ryan King's line, referring to it as pushing until it gets through the valley of the suck. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Shane Olson is another one of the instructors here. He's dead on about that, like the valley of the suck. It sucks because you're just like, I hate the way this looks so much. And then, but once you start getting there, it feels pretty good. And then you're like, a carpet keyboard to be able to use shortcuts with your feet. That's a good idea, Mort. If I had like pedals, the way a pianist would have, to change the tone of things, that's not a bad idea, actually. But yeah, the Orb Weaver is good, man. I love it. It's a good piece of, it's a good little device. I wish I used it more. I like set up my Photoshop and I actually like printed out, like I think I even have it here. Yeah, here it is. No, not that Orb Weaver. This one. Like, I printed out the things that it was. Like, I put shortcuts on it, and I did a little guide, and I put the guide in front of it so I could at least look at the thing. And like for a while there, it was pretty good. But I use Photoshop and Manga Studio / Clip Studio. I use ZBrush. I use Sketchbook Pro, and all these little shortcuts are different on those apps. So like, it just became too cumbersome, and I just got too annoyed. And I also, Razer has a little mini applet that runs in the corner and like runs in the background. I can't have that. I'm a pretty like obsessive compulsive person when it comes to like things running in the background on my desktop. It drives me nuts. It reminds me too much of the days when I did not have a PC that could handle all that. Alright, so I think maybe the thing to do now is either get into the shell or the equipment. I think I want to do the equipment. I mentioned that a few times. Yeah, I want me to do some equipment here. Probably want to do that. Alright, let's hide these arms. Let's hide those. Let's rename them. These are elbow straps. Look at this belt going. I started once with ZBrush 4.0, but I'm quitting it several times and never mastered. Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes, man. It's what you recommend for a fresh start in a beginner level. Well, the thing I would recommend, actually, because this is a really good way to sort of get to the most fun part the fastest. If you have the new ZBrush, if you have a license or you have a trial, you use the Sculptress Pro. If not, just go get Sculptress because it's free. I think it's free. It could not be free. There's a free version of something out there that Pixologic makes. But the cool thing about it is the resolution's dynamic. So like you can see the resolution changing as I change my brush size. So like if you want to just like get inspired and get back out there again, you know, for someone who used ZBrush 4 and hasn't worked in a while, if you work in Sculptress, it's just such a freeing thing. Like, you know, like it doesn't matter what you're trying to make, but like you can just pull out appendages real quick and throw a little head on it and give little eyeballs to the head. And then you can give the guy a little mouth, a little nose, right? And like it's really fun, and like I think the thing you want to basically do if you're trying to get back into it is that you want to start, you know, feeling inspired. And nothing is more this, at least for me, and I've heard other artists speak this way as well. Nothing's more inspiring than like seeing something you've done that like finishing something that looks okay. Like nothing inspires me more to keep working than making positive progress. So like when things start looking good, I feel so much better about like it feels less of a grind and less of a slog. So like you make a little noodler here, and then, you know, like just like I said, just spend a good amount of time like sculpting around and trying to like realize concepts, and just do it with the sculpting tools only. Like don't worry about the geometry tools, don't worry about the you know, more advanced features like deformation and high resolution noise and all the stuff that like ZBrush can do. Just like get out there, start building some weird looking stuff, and then like looking at some references and starting to build those, looking at some models and starting to sculpt those, and just like worry about because you can do a great deal with just the clay tool, move tool, standard brush, and like a chiseler, like a chisel brush, like the, you know, Damien Standard, or I use these a lot actually. I use Shane Olsen's cut brush. Man, I wish these things didn't have RGB associated with them for some forsaken reason. But yeah, like there's a lot of different tools out there that like just enable you to make some pretty cool stuff. You know, subdivide it a couple times, throw a nice shader on there, you know, grab some paint and slap some different colors on there. Oops. And then, like, you know, before long you'll have some meshes that look pretty cool. You can render out a turntable, do a nice like 3D render of it, or do a nice like BPR render of the thing, and throw the floor down, and just like tinker with the act of sculpting, because it's actually quite fun. And the sculpting itself, before too long you'll start getting some pretty cool stuff. And you know, with like several subtools and the ability to split up the mesh, you know, you could take a little bit of time and get a pretty cool little render. It's like almost, you know, I can get like a photorealistic render of a dumb little clay thing I made. And you know, it's like, hey, I made a turtle, or I modeled an ashtray from my desk, or I modeled a PlayStation controller. But like you can just do it all, get familiar with the sculpting tools, and it's really, really fun to just like, you know, mess around and see results. And so that's a good way to get inspired, because of how much that just can drive the creative process. Okay, so I have a few different ideas what I want to do about this belt. I know that I want to have it like not be the traditional like name in the middle D. I'd like it to have like more of a thicker sort of feel and look to it. So I think on this edge, like on the side, I want these kind of like almost hip pad things, like these bigger oversized hip pads. And then in the middle, it'll just be like a typical like belt locking mechanism that you would see on like a military belt or something like that. And then a strap over, I suppose. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of doing a couple things here. One belt seems a little bit low. It feels low, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess when you look at it that way, it's not really. I kind of wanted it low enough to showcase those panels on his stomach. It makes sense to be higher and the panels be lower. If I bring the belt up to like there, maybe bring the panels low. What the hell? Do I lose my... Oh no. Oh, come on, give me a break. I made... For some silly reason, I made low resolution topology of this, but I must have lost it because these other ones, like these are actually small. See? They're subdivided up. Something went very wrong here because did these last week. I did something incorrectly, obviously. Nice quick save those ever. These are all from today. Damn it. Well, I'll have to retopologize that one more time. I won't do that on the channel because it's boring as heck. And these don't keep their chisel at all. What did I do to these? Whatever, I'll just have to sculpt them, the rest of the detail down. It's hard to tell without the arms there. Arms. So the idea about use the phone render and disk jam for low end PCs came from you as an engineer, Mord. Oh yeah, you mean using the mobile render for performance? Yeah, that came from my partner Jay. So once I switched over to be full art and take care of all of our art stuff, my partner Jay, we were both engineers at Activision. But in his spare time, when he was not at work, he was focusing on becoming a better engineer and learning technologies that we weren't using at work. When I was in my spare time, I was focusing on learning art and learning, workflow and character pipelines and things. So when we joined forces, it was really a good match because he had become this amazing CTO essentially, and I had become a pretty decent artist. So that was good for us because like we kind of complement each other well. So Jay was the one who came up with that clever idea because we were looking at ways to just analyze what our options were. So the idea to use the mobile render and adjust the render pipeline, that was all Jay. But it is something that at the very least that thankfully I'm able to communicate with him on, meaning like I kind of know enough about the engineering that I can have an intelligent conversation with him about it. Let's move that up a little bit. It's kind of a shame because I don't want to hide how those things are. I'm not sure about this edit necessarily. I'm just kind of trying something here. This might be a bad idea, but I wanted to try it. I wanted to see if I made those like lower plates like really big and the upper plates kind of not so big, if it would look stupid. You know, it doesn't look stupid per se, but I'm not sure if it looks great. I don't know, I like those little grooves to be visible, and I like the idea that like they're all kind of these like beveled, chiseled things. Thin this out a little bit, it's probably a little too thick. Cloth is a very weird thing, like tassels and just cloth in general. It's very frustrating. It's very hard to get right because where the tension points are versus, you know, gravity and all that can be very frustrating. But overall, I think it looks better actually. I think there's a little bit of concentrated detail in the middle there. I think that'll be good because I'm going to make the belt kind of boring in the middle and more interesting on the sides because, like I said, I have these little hip pads. And it's kind of cool that like when I do deformation, I'll be able to make these lower plates bend a lot more and it won't look too stupid. I recommend for new people learning the selection and moment options and hotkeys. I don't know what moment options are, but yeah, hotkeys are movement options. Yeah. That's very important stuff. Like the hotkeys, having good hotkeys. I still have Michael Pavlovich's hotkeys because when I first started learning, Pavlovich had a really good, tutorial out there, and this is not flat. And his hotkeys were like Alt W for move, Alt T and Alt D and Alt S and Alt C, Alt B, and so I added a lot to them. But like since the very first time I started with ZBrush, I got these hotkeys, and now it's like now I can pretty much rip because I'm so comfortable with them, and brush selection and just interface control and all that kind of stuff is really important. All right, now how am I gonna do this? Cripes, someone's at the door. One moment, guys. Got someone ringing the doorbell. Right back. Alright, sorry about that. Mohammed Ben Amor, hi from Tunisia. Oh, awesome. Thanks for joining, Mohammed. Appreciate it. foot's usually flatter and the arch is on the inside. So these things would be, and this is a big reason I like to use I like to use perspective. Sorry, I like to use I like to sculpt with perspective off sometimes, because like it's helpful to see these areas where it's just like a straight up line. And the toes would definitely have contact with the floor. I don't know much, but I know that. This is a good time for Alt-H and Alt-T, which is the they are the trim dynamic and trim dynamic and hard polish brushes. A little bit too far. There we go. So now at least all of the toes are touching. While they still look like they need a little bit of shaping, at least they're kind of in line with the rest of the foot and would physically be okay. And these are the kind of things that, like, in a sculpt might not matter, but for something that's going to be in a game engine, they definitely do matter. Because you really want those foot contacts to be solid, because you're going to be doing slow motion, you're going to be doing a lot of close-ups and stuff, and just like, you know, if you see a game character's foot that doesn't connect with the ground, you know, it's probably a Reddit thread decrying you don't know what you're doing out there waiting to be written. I think this side needs to just come down more, because the right side of the arch does tend to touch. I mean, it touches. There you go. On the left side, inside of the arch, instep can raise a little bit. That's why footsteps have that kind of little missing section on the outside of the arch. When you look at like the cliche sort of Looney Tunes footsteps, that's why they, because this part kind of raises up, that part of the foot bone. This part would still touch, of course, but that part would just come up a little. Bends in right there where the heel mass reaches for that arch area. This part kind of is where it originates from. And this tendon reaches over, wraps around down there. There we go. A little bit more feet like feet. Oh, I went too far somewhere. Probably on that area. No, looks like on this area I went too far. Whatever. Whatever. That's enough. That's fine. Any lower than that, it's a waste of time. Sorry guys, now that part, that's boring. It's boring to watch. It's not good watching there. I love free sculpting, but I always get anxious about Retopo. Well, yeah, that's the thing though. But like with these new tools now, Retopo has never been easier. You know, so like if I wanted to do these legs, I demoed this last week, but I'll do it again because I love it. You know, I can just freeform sculpt and not care about topology at all. I mean, eventually I'll you know, I'll care obviously, but like for now, these feet look a little big. They kind of do, don't they? But for now, you know, you get a ZBrush going, and let's just say, you know, looks like I already had this demo for last week. ZBrush will get the Retope so much closer, and like, you know, here we are. It's got 1,000 polygons, and boom, like these right here are nice and see, those are a cycle, which is bad. You don't want this. That cycle geometry where it wraps around, that's a problem. So what you can do for that is take ZBrush guides, do a quick loop around here, loop around there, loop around here. I don't know why it's like not. And you make the curve strength high. Do another ZBrush. See how I did it now. And there you go. See, like, we have nice edge loops, you know, and you're pretty much already there. That's 2 legs that only cost me 1,300 polygons for all of the legs. The toes are good. I can deform these toes okay. Looks like there's some cycles there, but I can clean that geo up. These are all things that, like, the geo that I don't like I don't like that pole right there because it's going to be in a key deformation spot. Looks like these legs here have a cycle. They do. I guess I wouldn't call it a cycle, but it does mean at that pole. But these are all things that I can take and I can hand edit these and no problem. But like as far as the knee, which all the deformation is going to be originating from, and the leg, you know, these are all things that are really, and that's only one click. So retopology is no longer a problem of mine. Then what you would do is subdivide, 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 project, 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 and then all of a sudden you've got subdivided geometry that looks exactly like your old geometry. So that's the key, is just you know, work without fear and know that like you can always reconstruct some decent topology out of it, because that's a nice feeling, because you don't have to, like, you're not going to be killing yourself. So I readjusted the belt. Now the belt's here. Okay, let me do what I wanted to do. Let's call this belt. Name shoulder strap. On the belt, I wanted to take these side areas, hide these arms again. Pads. Okay. I guess I want to take. I'm going to duplicate this belt off. I think I want to take it from, like, I want to be visible from the front, but only just barely. So maybe like from here to here. So it's symmetrical. I think the first thing I want to do is probably slim it out a little bit. Kind of going about this in a roundabout fashion, but I don't care. Get those right materials on the face. Yeah, now I got nice shiny teeth, shiny eyes, shiny gums. This thing can just be a regular startup material. Fill material, let's make it like a... bevel these corners here. Uncrease all. There we go. Oh, you know what? Actually, last week, if you look at the arms tutorial, like if you see me working on the arms, that's what I did last week. I did a whole demo about how to get retopology, and if you look, like even the fingers came out good, and the arms as well have really good edge flow. So I actually did this already, and then I projected the detail back, so now I have like the arms ready for retop. Just kind of slapping this around here. It doesn't really matter all that much. I'm gonna like sculpt this into place anyway, so it's not gonna be all that critical that it's like dead on accurate. If you hold control, you can pull the polygons off. You do a key mesh. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do that. these? How big is a bow staff relative to like the height of the thing? That feels okay. Why not? I gotta find some reference here for this. Usually pretty thin and pretty long. I don't know, is it as tall as they are? Let me just think. The key is his big old hand's gotta wrap around it in kind of a cool way. That's mainly my thing, is that it's gotta look good in his hand. That feels about right, roughly speaking. It seems so weird like that though. Do a little look at what we're working with here. Some of these have it real small, but this one has it nice and big. I love that pose. Another cool pose. So it looks like they rarely even show it like strapped to his back. When they do, it's about just above the head, pretty straight up and down. God, it looks so weird there. It's more like this, it looks like. Just above the, yeah, that actually feels a little bit better. So the key is probably to just like let it connect at the back belt there. That's probably the thing to do. This turtle shell is just such a weird thing. It like makes things so difficult in terms of like just like it's gonna look weird at every like at some angle it's gonna look weird. But I guess if it's like here, he could reach back, grab it, which is going to be the key. And then I guess it'll be in his hands for most of the time. So. Yeah, I remember this from the movie. Yeah, so roughly about, lip high, which I think this one is. It's a little bit higher. That'll do. And proportions are a very strange thing. You know. His arm's a little bit too long, I think. But that's not the end of the world. It's a pretty nice size staff. Flip it around. Should fit in the hands well. Yeah, someone, there was some creatine in the secret ooze. Weld Z? No. Y? chop the wood up at the end there. I'll make the outside of the wood like all choppy. Dynamesh like 3,000. There we go. Sir, what's up? Welcome. What am I making? I'm making the bow staff for Donatello here. So his little trusty bow staff. slapping down a little irregularity amongst it, because I made these like pretty procedural, and you know, there would be a little bit more. Gotta do a bit more work on the straps because it's a little bit sketchy still. But at a distance, you know, it's pretty good. Let's make it a skin shade, gray. Make this a nice oak. A little yellower, a little darker and desaturated. Not bad. But yeah, 2Eyes official. Hey, what's up? Do you do your painting in ZBrush as well? Yeah, for like skin and stuff, I'll do it in ZBrush. I don't typically do a ton of like the game art, the texturing. I won't do a ton in ZBrush because at the end of the day, like it's gonna end up being red on a texture. So I'll do it in a texture painting program, you know, because that's what it's gonna look like in the engine. So that's what I really need to focus on. What material do you use when you're blocking in the colors? When I'm blocking in colors, I usually use Skin Shade, just because it's a nice flat matte shader, like meaning like it doesn't have a lot of speck highlights and it doesn't like really pop reflections too bad. It's good for just like dissecting like a decent like material ID kind of way. So I use Skin Shade. I don't really know how good of a skin shader it actually is, to be honest. I think it's more just a good, nice, flat shader. And then as you can see, like I put kind of more shiny bits on the eyes and teeth because you know, they're a bit more glossy. But everything else is Skin Shade. I don't really focus too much on the texturing here in ZBrush. That's usually for a later stage. I really wanted to get like, you know, the color breakup lets me read proportions a lot better, lets me read what space, sort of like it kind of gives me the idea of like if I took all this shading off, it helps with like just a nice flat read, right? So if I took all the shading off and just went to flat color, the color blockouts helps a lot for the kind of the same reason. It's just it lets you kind of see things in a way that's helpful. So I do the color blockouts a lot less for my own purposes and a lot more for the purposes of just or a lot less for the final look of the render, a lot more for my own purposes, meaning a lot more for the ability to kind of see where I'm at and where color falls on the mesh, if that makes sense. Alright, but it's about 3 o'clock here, so time for me to wrap things up. Let's see if I can get a good render of this guy. Let's drop it in perspective. Let's do this, take perspective off like I usually do. Drop him in the corner there. Drop him in the side here. Take perspective on this one. Let's do a nice close-up of our dude with that big new smile. So we got the face pretty much wrapped up today, which I'm excited about because the face was something I've been meaning to get to for a while now. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with where we got in the face. Wanted to do more equipment today, but I didn't really get around to it. But we got gums in there, we got a nice mouth bag in there, so like it'll be able to speak when I rig the thing, and it'll be able to do expressions and facial animation. So happy we got the mouth bag done. Fixed up the neck, the head. The head's neck high, pretty much shoulder high. It's pretty much done as far as the skin goes. So that's exciting. And then knocked out the bow staff real quick at the end there. And I think the proportions of the bow staff are such that I'll be able to do some pretty cool animation with it. I think I'll end up rigging it so the bow staff can deform, meaning stretch out and stuff, because it'll be cool like as it's whipping it around if it like tweens and stuff like that, or smears and stuff like that. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, everybody. Really appreciate. Sorry to the guys who just popped in. We're only going to be around for, or I'm only going to be. What's the word? I'm only up from noon to 3 on Thursdays, but I'll be back next Thursday and keep working on this thing. I think if we finish the pads and equipment, we'll pretty much be ready to just go into fine detailing, like skin pores and really cool like pock marks, and getting it like to the point where it's like, oh, that looks like a real damn turtle. That part takes a lot of time, but I'll probably do most of that stuff off stream. For now, it's really just a matter of like getting it to look kind of cool. And once I think it does, we can start doing the rigging and start making it actually move around and animate and come to life, which is the most fun part. Alright guys, no problem, Kenny, anytime. Any other questions, feel free to hop back in and ask, and if I can be helpful, I will definitely try to. And be sure to check out the other Pixelogic streamers. Their schedule is posted on ZBrushLIVE.com. Anyways, thanks for hanging out, everyone. I'll catch you next week.